Hazard pay. It remains one of the big topics of discussion on this channel every single day since its formation, nearly. That $10,000 that is needed to be paid to frontline workers, essential workers who worked in the pandemic, when a lockdown started back in March, and now as major lockdowns are anticipated, as 88,000 cases last Friday has grown to 100,000 new COVID-19 cases per day, is the federal government doing anything to put money in the hands of frontline workers? And now, as concerns about overreaching and full capacity ICUs across the country is hitting hospitals, are states running out of resources to pay additional sums of money to those frontline workers as we face another round of lockdowns? Major push today as 2 states say enough is enough. You need to send out stimulus. You need to send out hazard pay. Get it done. This is a big breaking development, and this is Purple. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me on a special Saturday edition of Purple. This covers a lot of major developments today, especially about hazard pay. A continuation of check minutes ago from before this video, but major developments about hazard pay, frontline workers, essential workers who need money right now. If you're one of those, or if you're wondering about how you're going to get that money, go to the first channel, subscribe, because together we're finding that money and we're getting to that money as quickly as we can. Also, like this video. In this video, I'll be going over what Vermont is doing about hazard pay minutes ago, trying to put money in the hands of workers right now. Missouri, then I'll turn to, as its governor, who has been under fire for a lot of controversial remarks about COVID since day one, is now saying that he'll continue to pay his frontline workers even though the federal government's not giving him the money to do so, because he cannot afford to not have his frontline workers as Missouri shows a massive spike in COVID-19 cases. Then I'll be turning to the issue about your grants, your hazard pay grants, your EIDL grants, all that and more that you can be entitled to and where it is and how to get it. All right, let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news as we sit here today is that frontline workers are more important than ever. The reason why is the surge of COVID-19 cases. The other reason why is the fear of looming lockdowns. And the final reason is because we're seeing lockdowns announced all throughout Europe. Minutes ago, Boris Johnson, the PM of England, announced England's going on lockdown, joining Germany and France. Italy is expected next. So what about us? Well, the concern is that the first people who are impacted by surges in COVID-19 cases, even before lockdowns, are nurses, hospital employees, grocery workers, medical, and general food and drug delivery people, pharmacists and things like that. Are they getting hazard pay? No. Are they getting it from the federal government? No. Did they get it under the first pandemic? No. Did they get it under the first lockdown? No. Were they to get it eventually to get paid retroactively? Yes. What happened? It was put in the HEROES Act written by Democrats. $10,000 if you worked during the pandemic starting on January. Calculate at $13 an hour for the number of hours you worked all the way from then up to the present. $10,000 if you made $100,000 last year, or if you made over $100,000 last year, you'll get $5,000. And if you didn't reach the threshold at a $13 an hour calculation, you would continue to get paid until you reach that threshold, which would essentially be by now. So then what happened to it? Well, what happened to it was the following. First, Republicans never put hazard pay anywhere in any of their 3 bills written by Mitch McConnell. Second, the problem solvers who tried to draft a bipartisan agreement went to meet with Nancy Pelosi when trying to field what Republicans and Democrats would like in a bipartisan bill. She refused to let them come to her office, refused to meet with them, and ultimately hazard pay didn't get in there because no one was advocating for it, unlike you and me. So when the problem solvers wrote their bipartisan bill, hazard pay wasn't in there. Next, when Steve Mnuchin started doing his negotiation in July, the president didn't put it in there. Then, when Nancy Pelosi did a revision of her bill just a few weeks ago, she took it out. What you have seen is both sides not giving a darn penny to anyone. And essential workers are not happy. The bigger concern is whether or not this has been a concerted effort to take away a lot of money to a lot of frontline workers or to deliver a fake narrative. The bottom line is the Republicans and the Democrats are both equally to blame and equally at issue for using a fake narrative. Both Nancy Pelosi and the Republicans have said, we want to provide relief to the frontline workers. You're not. You are absolutely not. Stop telling false narratives to the American people. Nothing in the HEROES Act that is written covers all essential workers. For the Republicans, President Donald Trump has said in many, many tweets he wants to give money to the frontline workers. He is not. Again, he is not doing that. So why do they keep on saying that they're doing something for frontline workers and not doing it? And are they doing anything at all? Let me go over the details. The details are they're doing nothing generally, and they're using frontline workers as sort of an emotional tug to say that they're helping Americans. They are not. Both parties are guilty of this. But there is good news, and if you've been with me for a few weeks, you know where the good news is. There's enough provisions in the bill proposals that are hazard pay-ish, that pay money to some essential workers, not the type of money we're talking about of $10,000, but some money. And that money is money you can get if it becomes law. Let me go over this. And what's important to understand when I talk about something like this, we don't always have a lot of clarity because guess what? They don't want to tell us. Let me go over the details. First, Steve Mnuchin's current offer, $300 billion to state and local, would be provided only to frontline workers. That's what he says. It is not money to the states to run for their pensions or to mow their lawns or to paint the Capitol building. It is only for frontline workers. That's the great news. The bad news is that it's not an overly encompassing definition of frontline workers. It's basically fire, medical, rescue, people who work for the county, city, or state. It's not private employees. For example, if you're an Uber Lyft driver or a truck driver, doesn't include you. All right, next item. EIDL grants are coming back. That is hazard pay-ish. So because it does pay independent contractors, sole practitioners who are frontline workers. That's really good. Next, there is a CDC grant in there that is paid to essential workers. It in fact says it's for essential workers. However, my concern is one, that the amount's not a lot, and two, that the definition of essential workers may be narrowly tailored as well. So what are states doing about the situation? Well, they are not happy. They're not happy, and these are states that are not on lockdown. These are states just dealing with spikes of COVID-19. Vermont's governor announced that he's doing a second round of hazard pay for essential workers and that they could receive up to $2,000. Employees, both current and former, who work from March 13th to May 15th could be eligible. These payments, which will go to grocery workers in grocery stores, pharmacies, and select retail stores, will be distributed by the Department of Financial Regulation for Vermont. Governor Phil Scott said this phase recognizes some of the forgotten heroes of last spring, the people who kept us fed, housed our most vulnerable, and cared for our children, and so much more. The application opens on October 28th. Okay, so it's already open by the time of this recording. And a total of $22.5 million is available to workers. Those who are qualified will get either $1,200 or $2,000 depending on how many hours they work. This is an article by Nikki Johnson Bolden. What's important to understand is that this is absolutely incredible. I mean, this is a small state, and this is a lot of money, and they're taking CARES Act 1 money, which we all know the states have, to disperse it for hazard pay. Why can't the federal government get this right? Let's look at Missouri. Now, Missouri is very different than Vermont. Vermont has a progressive governor, actually a progressive senator, Bernie Sanders, who's, very democratic. Missouri has a crazy governor Mike Parsons, who once said, "COVID is out there. Children need to go back to school. They're going to get COVID, and they're going to get over it." He's just not a nice person. He's just, God. But Mike Parson said that hazard pay will be provided. The failure of the federal government to agree on the new stimulus package has left Missouri at a problem. It has provided more than $10 million to some of its lowest paid state employee and government employees as an extra $250 per month. And so employees would receive the cash if they don't call in sick. So what is Parson doing? On Tuesday, Parson said we need to keep on paying the $250. I think the biggest concern is that we have the healthcare workers themselves. These are people on the front lines. Most of us have had the chance to get a second wind of this, but these emergency rooms, these hospitals, these doctors, these nurses, law enforcement, there is no break when in work. Missouri is among several states that's having a spike. They're currently showing 1,600 cases a day and 8 more deaths. That was on Tuesday. The state has reported 172,000 cases and nearly 3,000 deaths. Parsons says he wants to continue the payments if needed once the New Year's begins. So he's going to continue the $250 per month, despite whether or not there's COVID-19 relief by a hazard pay bill from the federal government. We'll evaluate this in December. It will all come down to what the federal government does. We want to be able to help those frontline employees. We've got to try and help to care for those people the best we can. Well, that's wonderful he's doing this after those horrible comments by him earlier in the virus. So as you sit here today, the push really remains for hazard pay. One of the Purple Power caucuses that I formed over a week ago was hashtag Purple Power hazard pay. Because I did it because you're entitled to this money. You need to push for this money. No one's arguing for your money. You see Mike Parsons wants this money, but the Democrats have took it out and the Republicans never had it in the bill. And it's important to understand where we're talking about for hazard pay. I'm glad I have the Parsons example in here because this highlights a concern of me for you. The concern is that some governors want to get hazard pay just for their own employees. Yeah, you see that? Some of them just want to pay it for their firemen and for their police officers and for the police chief. They don't want to pay them for private employees. Some want to pay them for private nurses, nurses that work in a hospital that's not a government-owned hospital. Some of them want to pay it for doctors. And then some just sort of stop at that point, and they only see it as for nurses and fire and rescue. Others take the next step after that and realize, okay, we have to do it for shipping and handling. We have to do it for warehouses. We have to do it for grocery stores or liquor stores. And that is the ones that I hope we open the discussion for. One of the most important discussions for hashtag Purple Power Caucus, hashtag Purple Power hazard pay, is not only you're needing the amount, not only you're entitled to the amount, not only how much is the amount you should be getting, but also the issue of who is qualified to receive this money. I want to make sure that the Purple Power Caucus really keeps this very broad and says, you know what, a lot of people should get hazard pay. It shouldn't be narrowly tailored. It shouldn't just be fire and police officers. It shouldn't just be a grocery store. It should be a much broader segment of people that are qualified for it. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Who do you think should be getting hazard pay? How much hazard pay do you think they should be getting? And when do you think it should go retroactively back to? Now, the issue as we're sitting here today is, of course, the Boris Johnson announcement. When Boris Johnson announced the lockdown of England, it really puts the discussion to the front burner today, which is, okay, is America next going on lockdown? And if we do go on lockdown, imagine how many frontline workers will need to get hazard pay. They didn't get paid last time, and now you want to announce another lockdown, and you haven't even written a lockdown stimulus package yet. The third stimulus package. You better start moving because if a lockdown's around the corner and you need your essential workers to be on the front lines, as Governor Parsons says, you better have a bill for them. And so far, no one in Congress has written the bill. It goes back to the days of this channel about a month ago. Hashtag LALATE write the bill. Oh, I'll write the bill for this. I'll fly out there and say, here's your darn bill. Here's your darn bill, right? Here's your lockdown bill. Don't put us on lockdown unless you intend to pay us a check. And I think maybe we'll get it done then. Let me go with some incredible questions and comments from yesterday. Cheryl Lujan. What Trump's going to do is wait until all his stocks go down and he's losing all his money before he helps American people. Veronica, our voices need to be heard. Jerome, Congress needs to get their jobs done. Tina, they should all have term limits. Teresa, Trump needs to do executive orders. Melody, I agree with everyone else. This government put us where we are, and since then our pockets are full, we don't matter. And since their pockets are full, we don't matter. Ilda Gonzalez, they should be ashamed of themselves. I pray for everyone to get back to normal. Nellie Fish, hey, why can't they get off their behind and get it done? Thank you, Purple Power, for being there. Thank you so much. I really don't know. And, you see what's sort of coming on the horizon. Let me do the hand this way. You see what's sort of coming on the horizon. You see the number of COVID-19 cases surging. You see lockdowns coming. Do you think Congress is rushing to write a bill to get ready to send out stimulus, to make sure you're not evicted from your home, make sure you're paying you have money for utilities, make sure this? They're doing nothing. All they're doing is going home and make sure they're getting themselves reelected. Jennifer Edmonds, hey, LALATE, hey, Purple Power family, hey, Jennifer. Raymond Ortiz, Congress should care less. They only care about themselves. Amanda Collins, we need to be paid retroactive 2,000 miles a month since May. Amen. If you have questions or comments in today's video, please drop them in the comments below. I really love your comments and keep them coming. There's a lot of development still unfolding, and that's why you need to stay tuned with me. Coming up after this is McConnell versus Trump. I'll be going over those comments by Mitch. I know you all heard them, but there's more than just those comments. And I'll be going over those Senate races and why they're so important to understand about your stimulus checks. Then after that is Street and the Stimulus, which, boy, there's a reason why it was a hit show 2 days ago when it premiered, but it is going to be gangbusters come this Monday, because the street is going to go cow with no stimulus and lockdowns in England. Stay tuned for that as well. Go to the Friends channel, subscribe, because we're going to get through this pandemic together, and we're prepared and we're pushing louder than ever. Make sure you're on social media, tagging your politicians, seat for stimulus, MSC, and keep it pushing. Also, like this video. Coming up next are those great videos. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay in that life.